So we're here with Tom and Rene from SPL. I'm Cory. This is Mel from USPK, and we just wrapped up our national championships for this year. We are at Freedom in Motion, and we're going to talk a little bit about why SPL is so awesome and highlight it and learn a bit about its history. So thanks for being here, y'all.
For having us.
Yeah. I'm going to jump right into question number one for y'all, which is, can you talk about how SPL got started and what it took to start a competition league?
Who's taking that first? We want to talk about how far back do we want to go? Well, I feel like it's always good to know the Seattle. Okay, let's start there.
Yeah.
But I actually think you're telling me that better. I'm putting me on the spot here. Okay, well, let's go all the way back. I moved to Vancouver in 2010, and around that time, Parkour Visions, in their first tiny little space, was hosting a Sasuke themed kind of parkour competition. They didn't call it a parkour competition because at that time, parkour competition was very much football. You're not supposed to do it. And so they were like, well, it's like Ninja Warrior kind of, and it had a rope swing and a sled pull as well as like an obstacle course. And I went and I participated. And I was like, this is awesome. And I came from a very early like anti-competition stance when I first started playing parkour. When I did that was kind of my eye-opening experience of like maybe parkour competition doesn't have to be that. So I think that kind of was the first like switch that flipped in my head. I wasn't organizing any competition at the time. I barely knew him. I think I met Rene like on a random Sunday session that he was hosting, and we were just jamming. But I think, I don't know, do you want to mention anything more about the Seattle scene?
So you just mentioned like when the switch flipped for you.
Yeah.
I don't remember when it flipped.
But you were previously anti-competition as well?
Probably, but I have like blacked out.
That's
part of my personality. that guy never existed.
Yeah. Well, so then I guess what was the first? Was it PKBC 5?
The first comp that we did.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe 5.
We'll say 5. So.
And Max Henry will correct later.
So yeah, it was PKBC 5. It would have been 2011. And in 2011, there was no gym. We didn't have a gym yet. It was just, it was outdoor. We did it guerrilla style. We just set up at the old Andy Livingston playground, which was like kind of a rundown little playground in a sketchy part of the city. And yeah, we just set some skill challenges that served as a qualifier to get into the speed course competition, because that's what the real parkour competition is. And yeah, do you want to mention anything more about that?
Well, I think with that one we were already starting to see things that didn't like about other competitions. Mainly, I mean, you got Red Bull, Red Bull something for quite a while. And we had the Parkour Visions competitions that were happening. But I think you and I always had points that we didn't like about how their speed courses worked and they were ran. So that was like our first go, and like this is how we think we should.
Yeah, and I do recall us, and this was probably a couple years later, but I remember having the conversation where you articulated really well what I think I believed, which is just the idea of parkour was too cool to like not make competitive. Like the whole and we're still talking about speed course competition, because like the original purpose of parkour competition, the original purpose of parkour was like A to B as fast as you can. You're in an emergency situation, how do you perform under pressure? And competition is a way that simulates that. You're not literally being chased by somebody with a knife, but how do you actually measure improvement? And speed course competitions seem to be like a really logical way and a really cool way to measure how effective you are with your parkour training. So I think that was a really solid foundation for us building and being really interested originally in the idea of doing parkour competition. And I think Rene brought up a really good point, which is that the only real competitions that existed were Red Bull Art of Motion, which is a freestyle-based competition.
When did MC Days?
Yeah, that was
Ultimate.
that was 2009, 2010, I think. So yeah, it was pretty early on, and then there was there was one in Europe that was called Parkouring. I don't know if you knew about this. Yeah, it was called Parkouring, and it was a speed course competition, but it fell off very quickly. So the showcase opportunity was Red Bull, or what was the one with the Barclay Card, yeah, Barclay Card World Free Running Championships or something like that. Yeah, so we're like, okay, it's too cool to let this idea die of speed course competition. So I think that's why we really kind of were like interested in initially building a competitive format for it, and then going back to speed run the next events, we stop and yes. Let me just say the again, like going back to that outdoor competition we did, the skill comp was originally just a way to qualify into the speed comp because we didn't want just anybody showing up to try to do the speed. We wanted people to be skilled in it. And then out of that emerged skill event. But I'll let you kind of speed run through how that happened.
So when we did the first competition awards, there's not anything. Do you recall, were we still doing skill qualifier for speed, or did we separate?
I believe it was separated that year. So that was PKBC 6, which happened in the gym because it was the first year. Technically wasn't even open yet. Yeah, it just was built.
Another interesting point about that event though is that was our first women's division. That's right. Because we were doing mixed division up until then, and I would credit Tyson Cheka for coming up to us, and he had looked at the competitors we had. We were 4 women that were like a really strong level in parkour, and he's like, I think we can do a good women's division here. You guys should do it. So we did, but not for skill. That came later. That came after a couple of seeds.
That took actually a few years to get us.
Yeah. And at that competition, the skill competition, which we talked about a little bit, was all about scale. I was going to say mostly, but it was all about scale. How far can you come? How far is the standing free? How high can you dyno?
We thought that was cool because
it's still pretty cool. But
well, we were like, wow, we could really measure how hard people can do these things. We could see, what the real limits are. Okay? And so yeah, we had a Kong event, we had a dyno event, we had a standing jump event, maybe a swing. No, we didn't do a swing. We didn't really have a good margin of bars. But I do remember. Do you mind if I take a read? So I do remember after that event, I had a very long conversation with Frosty. Frosty put in my head was like, it's cool to see people go far, but there's something missing. There's something being taken away from the idea of parkour, and it's, he didn't put it in these words exactly, but it's the environment. It's not just about scale, it's about where the thing is being applied. And I think that really kind of shaped how we thought the direction skill competition should go. It's no longer should be just about scale, although that's a component, but it's also about the complexity of the skill itself in the environment that it's practiced.
Was the next event NPC 1?
Yes.
NPC 1, we did
2013.
We did a speed competition. We did our first skill competition that had better skill challenges. A little bit different than today's format, but it was a separate event. And we also did freestyle, but freestyle was a tag team thing. Because at the time we couldn't figure out a good system on what points should be. I think we had seen a Russian video where it looked like they were doing like a freestyle battle. unverified. We don't know if that's actually what's happening. Or they were just like flexing on each other. But we were like, yeah, it works in breakdancing and tricking, so like let's do that. And we thought there would be some pushback, so we're like, we'll make it more like fun if it's tag team.
Yeah, it was 2v2 like tag team freestyle battles. And
I need to see small footage of this.
well, okay, so this weekend we worked with Joey Adrian.
Yeah.
And he won that year with Johan Leroux. And it was I think the first time anybody really saw who Joey Adrian was. It was interesting because I remember we met him in Seattle actually at a Parkour Visions like outdoor comp and held at Gasworks. And we're like, he wasn't competing, he was just training. We're like, holy crap, this guy's awesome. Like, we need to get him for our event. So we invited him and he was like, yeah, this sounds awesome. I normally don't like competing, but I'll come up. And then he did, and then he loved it. So
Maybe a quick sidebar, because I know you've been curious about this. Outdoor competitions, indoor competitions, thoughts, discuss, pros, cons.
yeah, I mean, I'll just say that I'm not inherently against outdoor competitions, but there are some very important logistical hurdles that have become problems, even recent times, including like I think last weekend or this past weekend.
I think like at least two, maybe three times this year, competitions have been affected due to rain. And if we keep SPL in Vancouver, that's a serious issue.
Yeah, serious issue. So yeah, I mean, not really opposed to it. Like, people always have this idea. It's like, oh, what if we do it at a crazy spot outside? Well, it's like, if there's a crazy spot where you can do this, you're probably still going to have to ship in some structures. And so it's not a question of whether it's going to be artificial environment, but how much is it going to be artificial environment? And so, I don't know. Like, I think people have this idea, this whimsical idea that parkour is the purest thing, where it's about what you did outside on the previous structures. But I don't know. There's like even Art of Motion, Santorini, they would ship in bars and have some additional structure brought in. So
Kings of the concrete, they're out there building it up.
Yep, exactly. So I don't know. Competitions can be cool outside, but it's
Big wall takeover. I don't think they built anything when we started the big wall takeover.
Yes,
But they did. Okay.
Yeah, they screwed a bunch of stuff into the wall.
Okay.
But even still, like, I mean, that's like that's a cultural competition.
Right.
It's like very much, yeah, and it's different from doing a world championship event. And if we look at other sports, pretty much every other sport is done on artificial environment, including rock climbing. Although there are some that are done outdoors, the vast majority of rock competitions are done on indoor setups. Sometimes in gyms.
Yeah.
Other times on just like built setups.
So they've already had to cancel 2 World Cups this year for climbing because they were outdoor on built setups and the weather was bad. So
yeah,
all the athletes flew in from all over the world and then didn't get to have the event. So
yeah, even skiing and snowboarding, it's like you know the jumps are built. There is a format called Freeride World Tour. They do something where it's a different kind of format where it's literally backcountry skiing. They get dropped off on a helicopter, and they have to plan the route before doing it, and then they just try to send it. And it's completely like natural terrain, which is cool, but it's like that's not what the Olympics are. That's not what like the 99% of skiing or snowboarding competition is made up of. So I don't know, this obsession with like what has to be done on what we always practice it on is to me not taking into consideration that like literally no official skateboard. You just go down the list. So
I think that's a good segue into kind of talking more about the history and about the competition formats that you played with over the years and the rules, because it is this balance, right, of how do you keep it fresh and up to date, but also honor like Parkour's roots, so it feels true to the sport. It doesn't feel like like climbing, for instance, has this struggle. Some of the competitions don't necessarily feel like the way people practice the sport. So, talk me through formatting thoughts.
Yeah. Still tweaking. Even this weekend.
Yep.
We always wanted to try to, as much as we want to be like sportifying parkour, show sport parkour, and that does tie into like the indoor thing. And I think some of the resistance to the indoor thing is the same resistance to competition itself. They're the same kind of talking points, the same kind of people that are like saying you have to do competitions outside, that we're saying we can't do competitions at all. I feel like it's kind of part of the same thought. And we have huge appreciation and sometimes feel bad for athletes that are amazing. Go ahead and name one. Joe Scandrick. Is he going to do well in SPL? Absolutely not. I can't think of any skill sets that he has that would do well in the SPL format, particularly in a gym, and even if we like build something outside, unless the competition allows like 12-story buildings or something to really shine. So he's always going to be doing incredible things as part of like the culture of parkour. And then you're going to have people that have more like an artistic expression as well that we really appreciate and value. And we just don't have an event for that. But I'm always like really psyched when I see other events for that kind of thing, like Gizmo is really sick. I like the Kings of the Concrete, even though we start battles thing, they're taking it back. You know, Kings of the Concrete is doing a different format that we're doing. They're not trying to copy what SPL is doing, and you're going to see different athletes come in and try different things with that type of format. And I think we can go on and on with that. But yeah, back to what we're trying to do with our format is we're trying to see like what is we'll look at like what's popular, particularly like for skill challenges. We'll kind of look at like what kind of things are people doing, what kind of moves are being taken up that people are doing a lot of, and try to fit it in the format that we have. I don't know if the time that you if anything jumps out at you to like speak about like specific formats, like how we do speed, how we do skill, how we do style. Because I know like one of the things for speed, for example, like the way we use flex, there was always like other competitions that we had like attended or seen for us were always really forced in terms of what athletes, competitors had to do. So go over this exactly, go under this exactly, go through this. So it'd be like picking the moves.
And the sprinter can't win a parkour competition.
So we wanted to know, like, if the question is like, what's more efficient? You know, we want to be like real like parkour geeks and know like what's more efficient is like is over faster or under faster? Is jumping the gap faster, or is like taking some sort of other route faster? It's can a swing be fast? Right? So we're trying to put like skill challenges into courses, and we try to incentivize them with the flags. But it's always cool to see how athletes interpret the course.
It brings into the whole conversation. It brings into the speed course scenario the element of strategy. So it's not just like how fast can you go, but how fast can you pick the right moves to do fast through space. And are the moves that you pick the ones that are best for the course, or maybe they're also just best for you because that's your skill set. And so that's just an interesting dynamic with speed course competition. That is a big focus for why we decided to use this flagging system. These checkpoints kind of allowed up to the athlete's interpretation.
So I'm curious, because you guys definitely do not do Flora's Lava courses. Have you ever done Flora's Lava courses? And why do we not do that anymore?
Why do you not remember very specifically why. I remember very specifically why. It was our first year doing NAPC. It was 2013. We had 2 courses, and one of them was a Flora's Lava course, and there was one area where they could have bypassed a big chunk of the course if they just did this massive jump. And we were like, who's going to do this massive jump? Who's going to do it? And then Dylan Baker went up. He tried to do the jump, bounced off of it, landed in the lava, and it was just the most deflating and underwhelming thing we've ever seen. Because it was just like, okay, like, so
Dylan can't.
he just didn't do it.
Yes, it's over.
And it's not like it's Ninja Warrior where it's like he fell in the water. It was he literally just touched he stepped down 2 feet. And so it was like, okay, that was super lame. Unless we can have some sort of like actual like consequence.
Lava.
Like lava.
I'm here.
Which, you know, again, logistical problems. We don't have lava.
Then we would have killed Dylan Baker.
Yeah.
So that was, at least in my, I'm pretty sure we both had this discussion right after the event. We're like, never again, basically. We'll never do like wars, because it really is like super underwhelming if somebody falls in the lava. If it's like if there's an actual consequence, then that's a unique experience. But we try to set courses that make it so that if you did fall on that, you would get the punishment on its own. Right?
Time punishment.
Yeah, exactly.
So do now.
I think this is actually a good way to bring up too, with our formats, what we're trying to do. So is reflect the culture as much as we can. So we're still trying to sportify it, but it also needs to be entertaining. And I do think it's pretty lame to watch someone like 2 feet off the ground. If you're a spectator just coming in, like imagine you switch on like SPL live stream, so you tune in, or it gets shown to you on YouTube, and I think it would be pretty weird watching into someone that doesn't know sport. Like, why are they choosing to run on the field? Why don't they just go like on the ground around? Awesome training exercise. Most of parkour is like just board lava-esque type things, you know. Also, again, you could post something extremely difficult to like a 2-foot wall type gap of parkour, and it might do well as like a post, and it might be again, why didn't they do this?
I also would say one of the things you're really known for, at least among the speed athletes, is that you're gonna have to do some big ascents and maybe some big descents, and I think that would be limited if people couldn't be down at the ground.
You also do a good job of setting the courses in a way that makes you have to like organically choose those paths, and oftentimes the higher paths or the faster path. Like having run the courses and run sometimes other people's courses. It doesn't always feel like there's a reason. It's just like, oh, the course setter just wanted you to do this big jump, and then it's just everyone trying that big jump. Like it really does feel like you're just practicing parkour. Which I think it's interesting, you know.
Yeah, and one more point there about speed course design is that when we're setting speed courses, we're trying to also make it so that if you hit your line, it feels good. Like we don't want it to feel like there's like crazy abrupt changes of direction where you're breaking your flow like mid speed course. And so I mean even when we were setting for this weekend, there was like one checkpoint where we were like, I don't know if we want to make them turn here or if we let them go around, because that if we make them turn here, it feels really abrupt and it wouldn't feel good. Like I wouldn't enjoy doing that speed course if I had to. And so that influenced how we actually finalize the design. Actually, we make them do this instead. It gives a more a smoother transition to the next segment of the course. So yeah, like part of that plays into athlete feel of like the pleasure of doing the course, but it's also part going back to it's always a fine line of, that we're trying to balance, which is athlete enjoyment, but also entertainment. And so again, if you're seeing how these athletes like kind of mess up the same part because they're doing like this stupid weird direction change that we're not good at as parkour athletes, then it's going to be less fun to watch.
So maybe in the same vein, and maybe this is leading the witness a bit, how important is it for people who are making obstacle courses to make the courses do parkour, and what are the things that are missed? That's a very nuanced perspective of how it feels at that. And maybe if you could tie into skill as well, because we see a lot of attempts at speed competitions. We see not a lot of a lot of other skill competitions out there, but it feels like parkour watching a skill competition. It feels like the train down the street.
Yeah, I think speed is getting tougher to make like exciting and cool. I think we're actually like feeling a little bit of fatigue like this calendar year. I feel like in like participation and everything. We're always trying to make the courses exciting. It's easier to make them exciting if people mess up. If if it's like really challenging, like you witness failure, so someone might not quit. You might watch like 5 people not quit, might get something right, and then all of a sudden someone does, and that would be really big. And so we're trying to think of like how do we get that out of speed courses without like killing people. It's a tough thing to do. We already talked about like warrior and water and stuff like that, and so like these are kind of like future things. Like, oh, maybe one day we'll do something like this, but right now, speed courses exist in gyms, and it's actually like really tough to make a good speed course in a gym. Particularly a gym we haven't been to, maybe the equipment is limited because, as Mel said, like we want there to be a sense. Like we kind of have like a checklist for when we're making speed courses, where it's like it's got to have like where's the exciting, where's the potential jump. There it is. All right, they got to climb something. There's got to be at least like one forced part of this course where they got to climb something, and in some gyms that's actually hard to do. It's too easy for athletes maybe to like find some other way where they can still basically not touch anything with their hands, just like stride up onto things and over, right? Because there's just too much stuff around and we're not being restrictive enough. So that's difficulty. And I think the other speed courses that you're like mentioning are big. There's a bunch of them, right? But that's a format we've seen before, like Coppola, did like the 2v2. I think WFPF is also doing like 2 head-to-head. But then you see like almost like identical runs where it's like really, and it's just very linear. It's very much everyone's doing the same move. They seem very like power and output based. It's not a lot of like strategy or mix of techniques that get used, and that's what we're all about. We want to see moments like the rock show paper slide, where he came up with a plan where he's like, okay, everyone's doing a turn vault over this rail and stepping on the bar, and you realize you could just like slide through it, pull through on it. And I think he told me he didn't actually practice it because he didn't want anyone to see it. So he just pulled that out during the competition. It was maybe one of the best moments in like speed parkour we've seen because it was so unexpected. You're not going to get that on a head-to-head. You're especially not going to get it when the course is playing.
What I've seen in the head-to-head competitions, because you have to be able to design 2 identical courses side by side, and so it is somewhat predictable, and I know it'll change it, like maybe you've got to go up the high wall first on this one, but it feels to me almost more like speed climbing. And what you're seeing in that is that there are people who do speed climbing and they love it and they're great at it, but it is almost entirely a separate discipline, especially now that it's separated out for the Olympics, where the people who do speed climbing are literally just speed climbers. That's what they do. That's what they practice for. They don't really do any of the other disciplines. They don't climb outside. That's just the thing they're doing that they love. And I worry that if you get into those linear courses side by side, where maybe it's not the identical course every time, but a layman looking at it, it's going to feel kind of like the identical course every time. It's going to look more like that and less like the joy I see in the athletes, because I get to work a lot with the athletes, of being surprised by the challenges and then working through the challenge. That's the piece that I love of it, is their delight and surprise, and them all having that moment of like, there's no way, and then there is a way, and they find it. Like, I'd hate to lose that piece of it.
Let's pivot a little bit to skill. So I think that's also very relevant in skill as well, right?
It is 100% relevant in skill.
And I see that in the evolution too. Of like it used to be we just got the biggest concrete or con clear or whatnot, and now there's complex moves within skill, and it's always, it's like so fun to do skill. Probably one of my favorites. So how did that happen?
We fight so much over skill challenges.
Fight's a strong word. Yeah, it's close.
I'm gonna say
We're gonna fight over the term fight.
it's become more of a deliberation. In the past, I'll say it's definitely.
This weekend is a perfect example of it, where you were tied to a challenge.
Which one?
To jump to the bar, the ranch, the ranch, and I was like, it crosses over this other challenge, and I don't want to have that during the semis round. There's too many people, and you were like, well, I really like this jump. Okay, well, so we need to figure out a solution now. And it's literally day of. We had already designed it. We were in day of, and we were like, okay, so, and because of that questioning that I had, Rene came up with a completely different challenge. The same, we kept those ranch jump, but he was able to shift. He's like, what if we did? We got rid of this other challenge. We turned it, basically, and he came up with a significantly better challenge for the round. Because I pushed his buttons a little bit about like, hey, like we need to fix this problem, and that's just one example. Like even on the day of the finals yesterday, I was like, I don't think this challenge goes. Yeah, and he's like, no, I think it does. I think it does. And we ended up.
We did make an adjustment.
Okay, yeah, we made an adjustment, but ultimately, I was basically proven wrong. Like we did slightly change it to make it a little bit more doable, but it wasn't that much different. So, but yeah, but it's this kind of push and pull that we have of like challenge design that I think is so important, and it's so incredibly frustrating to go through in the moment because it's very stressful, right? And this is the hard part about skill is that skill design is. You have to be perfect. Yeah. Because if it's off by a little bit, it ruins the competition. And we've had our fair share of having it off by a little bit.
How would you define that? Like the ones that feel on versus the ones that feel off? Like what are the elements maybe that make it not feel right? Might be easier to define.
Well, you never want to underestimate athletes, and that's always kind of embarrassing. For us when we do that, and we've done it before. But on the other side, we don't want to overestimate the athlete and kind of give them too much challenge because then it's embarrassing for them, right? Because then they can't do the things that we're setting for them. And we could hope that it pushes them and they get something out of it still, but it's not fun. But in both scenarios, it sucks. But it's not fun for the audience when either happens. And so it's a lose-lose unless you get it perfect. And that's what we're striving to do. That's why we have such a battle with setting skill challenges because it's it's so easy to do it poorly. Yeah. So we have to be good. It's like no option.
I know like the first national APEC first USPK Nationals that we did in Apex, men's skill round of 3 challenges. That last one, nobody dodged. It was the one where they went up the walls with clouds. And I think only one person even tried it.
Yeah, John almost got it.
John, yeah, but it was disappointing because it was like we're not even getting to see people like get close or try it. Just watching everybody walk up and just kind of, I'm not.
Yeah.
Whereas yesterday, all of the challenges, people were able to fight for them. We had one in the women's round that nobody did, but I think everybody was able to get the go at it and try and fight for it. And so even though nobody got it, it's still exciting to watch.
Yeah, sometimes I think we also don't know what the competition will bring out of people, and I think this is also something sometimes people think of as a negative. But there's a lot of challenges that athletes will like put off. And so we'll go to like home gyms. I can give an example of this year when we went to Europe, and there was a challenge that I can't remember the move that entered it, but it ended in a dive cone. And this is in the women's event. It's a great round, by the way. It is still up on Sport Park. It will be up on Sport Parkour League YouTube stuff. You can check it out. Awesome women's skill division, and that was a great round particularly. But Camilla ends up doing this challenge, and then after she comes up to me, and she's like just like stoked that we put it in because that's her home gym, and she had never done it before, but she had looked at it and known she could do it. But like all of us that do parkour know that happens.
Yeah.
You get your eyes on something, and sometimes you just feel like, not today, not really feeling it, but I'll definitely come back to it. And at some point that day just doesn't come. But if it's in a competition, because being in that, I like to participate in competitions myself as well. I did particularly well, but it does feel like this sort of transformative experience sometimes with I feel like two parts of pressure. Is like one is the competition, so it's like, okay, now is the time to do this thing. But you get a little bit of buzz from also just being around people in that sort of environment doing it. And I don't think it's a negative thing. I never feel like I'm personally putting myself in danger of doing something. If it's something that I feel like is really outside of myself, I'm not going to do it. But in my experience, anytime I'm at a skill comp, I will end up at least trying the things that I would normally look at and be like, maybe I'm not really feeling it today. I'll go to something more in my comfort zone. So I do like what a good skill comp in that vein like brings up.
How did you get to the 3 kind of rounds that you have right now? So we've got the community round where there's 6 set challenges and you got 20 minutes to rotate through. We've got, I'm calling it round of 3. I'm sure you guys have a formal name for it, but it's 3 challenges and everybody goes to one and gets up to 3 attempts on that challenge. And then we've got the individual rounds and it's 2 minutes and 5 challenges. How did you guys get to that spot from, hey, do your biggest comp?
So you remember? I remember.
This is a good question.
Yeah. So actually, very very early on, we go all the way back to the outdoor competition that we did, the very first one. That one was kind of like a community.
Okay.
So we had set like a bunch of skill challenges around the park. And we tried to do that.
Yeah.
And there was a set amount of time. But it just kind of evolved more and more. The event at FTC used to be a 2-day event plus an on-site qualifier, and so when we increased it to a 3-day, like World Championships, SPL1, I believe, was when we reintroduced the community round, not just like a qualifier, but like as part of the competition. So yeah, it just kind of like it was kind of a format that already had been done, and so we just kind of blended it again.
Yeah.
Started doing, and the time round I remember you just coming up with just out of your brain, and you just said like, "Let's put him to the fire," or something along those lines. Of like,
Is he actually rubbing his hands?
Basically, I think it was actually. Are you guys familiar with? I think it's called Beastmaster.
Yep.
It's on Netflix. So I was watching that, and I started to like people would comment on it, and then I'm like, okay, it's just Ninja Warrior basically. But I like that it had stages and that there is walk and like it's like I started thinking like what's actually cool about Ninja Warrior is you see someone do a challenge and then next challenge, but they kind of have to like prep. They're being timed, but there's still like a prep movement. And I wanted to do that parkour because I'm like, I think I can. And I think it'll be better eventually when we don't have to do the gym and actually build something out that actually has stages.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun. But that's what I was trying to emulate with that sort of feeling. And we actually try to create those rounds like a course. So we actually try to create it so that challenge 1 flows into challenge 2, flows into challenge 3, challenge 4,
In theory, if you're good enough, you could do all of them in a line.
Yes.
That was kind of the original idea. And we've kind of varied in terms of how difficult we've made it. So some years it's been very easy, and some years it's been like extraordinarily rough.
It's a difficult round to set because of the extremely short time constraint. So they can't be the most complex challenges because if they take time to figure out, so they do just kind of have to. In a lot of ways, they have to just be like a scent in some capacity, but also as exciting as possible, and also require like the skill that like the real parkour heads are after. Because that's one of our biggest criticisms with the skill competition generally with the format is we still get criticism to this day of it not being technical enough. People want it to be. Some people want it to be more technical.
Yesterday I felt pretty technical.
They have that chip on their
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't remember exactly what our old format for the final round was, the championship round, which is the 3 attempts. We did have some sort of situation where we had like 3 challenges or 3 versions of 3 different challenges that you could do for various people.
Oh.
And so,
okay.
but you only had a certain number of attempts that you can do, so you don't want to. So if you think you can do the harder one, you don't want to waste them on the easier ones. So we had it kind of like that, and then we moved to 3 challenges, and you had 5 attempts across all 3 challenges.
Okay.
And so the goal would be to like try to get the first 2 challenges like in early enough attempts so that you can save it for like enough attempts for your last challenge. But we found that we would never get to the last challenge.
Right.
So then we decided, well, let's just make them do all 3 challenges and just limit the number of attempts at each of them. And that's kind of how.
3
There was-
feels. Oh no. 3 just feels like magic because the audience doesn't have a chance to get bored. I feel like if it was more attempts, sure you can make it harder, whatever, but the audience is going to start to get bored in a while watching people just continuously try a single challenge. So 3 is sort of that like you get the one sort of feel it out, and then you get the one good go where maybe you don't get it, and then maybe get it.
And sometimes you're surprised with the one bang.
Yep.
that iteration of finals too. What came before it is we would actually allow practice room.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
And that was like a weird one because athletes would practice together and kind of unlock for each other.
Yeah.
And so those were the years where sometimes I think we would have discussions after about like, did the right person win? Because had they not been assisted to practice with this other person, they would have came out and been like really exposed, just like not doing that at this thing. And I think in the spirit of I will say like good competition spirit, I wouldn't say it's spirit parkour, but I think it's just people being good people and good competitors. They still help each other out. They still
They
when
absolutely
they're doing those turns in rotation. I think everyone that competes loves that round
Yep.
because it doesn't have the it doesn't feel like a race. Whereas the first 2 rounds feel like a race, and it's just kind of like 5 people out there trying to sesh a challenge. Each of them have a limited number.
That
of
one I think is the most true to the parkour student.
Yeah.
That you're all trying the same challenge. You're just like, all right, you basically wait in line. I do it at a jam. Yeah. I'll wait in line for my turn at the challenge. But
I have to say, as being with the athletes who are waiting to do it, they absolutely, it is a competition, but they're not competitive. I mean, they're all highly competitive, but they're competitive in a way that I want to get it, but I also want you to do your best. And yesterday in the finals, they were absolutely giving each other, like, you just need to do like this on that, like really good advice because we do want to see each other and they want to see somebody get it. And like, it is the true spirit.
But I keep hearing, it's like there's so much conversation about what the feeling of parkour is. Like that's mostly been this conversation. It's not what looks cool. It's what feels like parkour. It feels like training outside or It doesn't feel that different to do with competition, especially skill competition and train outside, which I love. What makes a style of competition feel like parkour and doesn't feel like another acrobatic discipline?
Style is an interesting one. And actually, Joey said something this weekend that like really resonated, which is that like the athletes are going to be elevated because of some of the changes and some of the screening we're making to the competition, which I think we also saw with the concept of flow. Back in the day, flow I think had a different concept to it. It was just kind of like keep moving. And I think some people still kind of like follow that sort of mantra, but for us, good flow, like for Thon, good flow is like you gotta be like really judicious with your footwork, right? The connections need to be exact, right? It can't just be like shuffling along or like stutter stepping, as most of the culture calls it. And we started to really let people know that was part of our criteria for judging. And what we ended up seeing was more and more like Instagram videos, more competition videos where that was highlighted. However, it started to kind of turn into like a lot of filler movement. So in fact, people started to be like, okay, well, I can connect it if I just like do a ground comb, right, or a shoulder roll, where it's like those are movements that have like their place, and when they're used, it's like okay, that made a lot of sense, or it actually was really sick. But if you just kind of like stomp something and then shift to your hand, like, well, like why are you carrying your momentum that way? Clearly, you didn't need to. And I think that's starting to turn because we are actually putting, when we have our like athlete and judge meetings, we talk about filler moves. We talk about that we don't want to see them, or we talk about like having a limit on them. But now we're into the combo race, and we the first couple of years that we tried to do combos, I think I felt that like at least more combos are.
And you were wrong.
And I think in theory they still do, but I think what competition brings out a lot of athletes is they want to do their hardest stuff. And so like I can do hard move A and hard move B, and I'm going to make these work. How am I going to make it work? I'm going to just do a little ground comb and maybe take another step or two or shift my feet. I do the next one. It's like, okay, but combos, like a lot of us, I think of combos like in tricking. Tricking combos, it's plyometric. It's move, plyo, move, plyo, move, plyo, move, plyo, move, right? And that's a combo. And that's ultimately what we wanted to see in that part of the competition, except for, with bars and things like that. Joey came up with another good phrasing this week where he said, good combo means you have no time to think between the moves. So because athletes were asking questions about how many swings they can take, like back and forth, basically. And he's like, well, if you do it like this, or if you do like a kid cast, or to set up your second move, you have so much time to think. So it's about like how rapid the moves happen.
Yeah, so there's a few things I want to mention, but it's funny because I mentioned Joey and what he said, but I mentioned to Joey there was a commentary by Josh Joey a couple of years ago, SPL. He said a combo is where one move cannot exist without the other, which isn't exactly true for combo, but it's kind of in the same vein of like, yeah, like it's not just merging two tricks together; it's doing so in a way that that really like reactively connects with another. It's almost like it goes from multiple like one skill and another skill to kind of like one unit. That's kind of like the way you phrase that. I actually want to quickly go back to the line before we get too deep into combo, which much more we want to talk about it. But 2013. Oh no, that wasn't that late. I think it was the year before, 2014. We dictated the line. Yes.
Oh.
We didn't say what moves you had to do.
I think we did it for more than 1 year.
Yeah, we might have, yeah. I just remember we were like, athletes don't know how to put lines together. It's like kind of the same thing repeating itself again with combo. but we're like, why are people stopping and changing direction without like a logical reason to, or if we go back far enough, Art of Motion, Barclay Card, there's like, why are we saluting the judges? Why are we like hyping up the crowd in between skills? Like, that's breaking the flow of the line. It doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this as a sport?
Yeah.
The line should be continuous. And so we were like, let's make them do it on a course. So we had a starting point, some like, I don't remember exactly what we called it.
Sometimes it was S.
We had like designated checkpoints they had to make their way to, and then we had an ending area. And we did this for a few competitions for sure. And we actually found that it kind of elevated their line. Like
The lines are pretty good.
they ended up being line. They constructed line. The one downside to it was it forced everyone into kind of the same box of like, you must be using each of these structures. Where I don't know, maybe somebody who wants to use more bars is going to have that opportunity as much as ledges. So there were downsides to it. There was an interesting thing that happened in those years where I think lines, like the athletes started to get it more, and I think hopefully that's going to happen over the next little while with combos as well. We're really trying to get them to understand like there's a difference between doing a couple different tricks in a really short amount of time and doing a combo.
Like I said, I think it's something that you'll see Instagram clips of that like athletes really get it. Like I did this move to this move. I did this move to this move. And then when it comes to competition, because they're trying to do the hardest things they can, where the points come from, they just make bad choices.
I always laugh and say that when Ed has a mistake on his big trick when he did the side to the bar and he didn't stick it, which would have been the big trick. So he did, I don't even know the name of it, but he did a bar trick out of it. I was like, that's a perfect combo.
Ed always has good ideas for it.
Yeah.
Like he
That's
really
his
gets it.
Yeah.
Well, also, here's my segue into the next question, which we're definitely talking about, again, not only the feeling of parkour. Oh gosh, I'm losing my thought. I lost my fancy segue,
Okay,
so I'll just jump in.
So
Yeah.
before you do your segment,
Yeah.
because I think it's important to just kind of wrap up style a little bit, which is kind of going back to what Rene's saying is like if you look on Instagram, people understand combo, right? They're doing combo. That's already what they're doing. There's this weird thing that happened where we noticed over the last few years. Actually, one of the reasons why we implemented combo round, which is that there's this weird thing where people are trying to do competition lines.
Yes.
And so,
Yes, that's where I'm
so
going.
we were like, oh, like this is weird because there's almost a difference between a line and a competition line. And so we saw that happening. We're like, it feels weird. It doesn't feel as genuinely part of like why doing parkour is how it's normally practiced. It feels like this artificial thing that we're doing, and maybe that's an okay thing. Maybe it's fine. But we were like, okay, let's implement combo. But the other thing that we did was 2015, I believe, was first year of Big Trick. And Big Trick was like, well, I think the part of the problem why athletes aren't doing lines is because they're trying to do their hardest skills in the lines, or in this case now, in the combos. And so let's have a round that incentivizes, let's save your biggest stuff for the finals. If you get there, that's great. You can really show off your big trick in the finals. But there's going to be other ways to work up to it. You need to show you have a diverse skill set. Putting together clean lines. And now, in this case with combo, like putting together hard hitting combos. And then now we have a big trick at the very end. So.
I'm glad you said that because that definitely brought it back, which is like, it's the competition is a reflection of the culture and just the way that we train, but then also obviously it's reflected the other way around. Yeah. So that's my segue to how has your community of origins kind of crafted the way that you do competitions. Or like, I think of Origins as a really diverse place. There's high level athletes. There's like moms with their kids. There's a good women's community there. It's pretty gender diverse as well. So I guess maybe even backing up, I don't think it started like that. So how did that come about? And then also, how is that supported over the competition scene too?
So I guess how it came to be, like, I'll start with the concepts of like having a lot of adults at the gym. I mean, I travel a fair bit to other gym communities and stuff, and a lot of gyms don't have very many adults.
You mean employee?
Clients.
Client. Okay.
Yes.
Because
We can go the other way in a second.
I think it's both, right? I think part of what makes Origins more adult oriented for clients is also we were adults and we were the coaches. So, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry.
So yeah, I do notice at quite a number of gyms that it's much more catered to kids, and they struggle to have an adult community. I was talking with Ellis. He was like, "Yeah, we have like one adult class a week." Part of the problem is we only have one adult class. You can't expect it to grow if you're like making everyone. It's the only time. I mess with our schedule way more than I ought to. I mess it up for clients, for my staff, way more than I should. Always just trying to improve a little bit. Sometimes throw in a class, back out. And a lot of times that's with adult classes too. But I actually think that one of the things we're fortunate of is we're in Vancouver, which happens to be a city where a lot of people are quite fit. You have to have a certain level of fitness to really enjoy living in Vancouver, because it's a very walkable city, right? So, like, if your lifestyle in Vancouver is going to be like, I'm going to be out walking a lot, I'm going to go into nature, I'm going to go to the beach. That's go hike, ride my bike, like that's Vancouver. So I think we have a lot of people that are looking for like just different activities to do. A lot of adults looking for different activities to do. They're already like embracing play. But on top of that, like our location, we just happen to be like right smack in the middle of the city, which we lucked out on. So these are like just two things that were like fortunate. I think what Tom's alluding to is when we get people in the door, they're greeted by adults. And I mean, when I opened the gym, I was only like 25, 25 years old when I opened Origins. So, funny enough, because people have asked me, it's a weird thing to mention, but people ask me, like, when was the last time you did have a beard? And I'm like, 16. But part of the reason is, I think when I was like a teenager, it's like I was one of the first of my friends that could grow facial hair, so I did that. But then I started coaching parkour when I was like 21, and I just wanted to look different. So it would just seem like an easier way. Like I had something trimmed like a little bit shorter, like Tom has like right now, but it was like just a way to look older. And so then I opened the gym. I think when we opened the gym, I had like long hair and like not a nicely groomed beard, but like probably looked a little bit older than I was just because of that. And again, when adults come into the gym, if I'm not a 17-year-old coaching the adult class, I think that helps them stay. I don't know if you want to speak more on that, but
No, that's exactly the point I'm making. But I think part of it is our age, but I think there's the other part of it, which is that when you opened Origin, I think you really had in mind like this is actually for adults. Like we're gonna coach adults, right? Like, and we knew like Tempest was successful. This is very early on for a lot of our Origins. We knew Tempest was successful with their kids program. We knew Apex was successful with their kids program. I think Parkour Visions had a successful kids program. So we were like, oh yeah, that's fine, right? So and then when we started, like you can speak maybe more to this, but we weren't successful at all. So we had our grand opening and we had like over 1,000 people come in, I think. for our grand opening, and we didn't have any like way to process them and actually retain them as clients. It was just like, hey, come in free, look at the space. And so that was a huge mistake, but we persisted and ultimately ended up building a big kids program, but also a very prosperous adult community. I think largely because we wanted to be coaching adults. That was a big factor, at least for me.
Yeah. When I opened the gym, the youngest age I taught was 13. So I had been already coaching for like 5 or 6 years, but it was always like at a gymnastics place. I taught for kind of deal with the city at one point, where I was teaching classes through that, and it was always and that's where Cory is.
Yeah.
So it was always like 13 and up, and we had some younger teens, but it was mixed. Like there were adults in there already. Part of it too is just like the method in which we coach. I think Tom and I were like the founding coaches of the gym, and we had a lot of progressions. We had a lot of like easy ways to start things, and I do think some of the trickiest things about being a parkour coach is if you're really good at parkour, you don't realize how difficult it is for like general population to just get started in. And if you can realize all of a sudden like, oh, maybe they're actually not strong enough, physically strong enough to do what I'm asking them to do. So I need to break it down further, or come up with like a different way to hire. They're just not ready for that, or maybe they're just scared because that's too little. And even if you're thinking of like, I think within my first couple of weeks of parkour, I was doing comms over rails because that was like the first structure that was introduced to me on, right? So I didn't build up like this fear of it, right? But now we come into gyms and it's like you either have soft boxes or you have ball boxes, things like that, to progress a little bit easier. But I didn't, learn to be afraid of that kind of thing. And I think that's just what it is. It's some of us who are really passionate about parkour, like I think I might start coaching people, I might start teaching people, don't realize that it's going to be way harder for a lot of people than it was for us. So I think we did probably like a decent job of just breaking stuff down so that people were retained and found that they could eventually learn how to do things, break some boundaries, not come into their first class and like either just like sit out, and you can't do what you're asking and really discouraged. So that helps.
Can you speak a little bit about your women's community as well and the growth of that? But I think, if you want women to compete, you got to build women's communities and get a really healthy women's community. So.
Yeah, I think it's some of the. So again, part of it luck, and luck can be extended to. We had a great role model in Alyssa, who was also one of like the. I think we hired her after like a year, and she's performing at a high level, and so women are coming in. But also realizing it's for them, and if they're not just watching like a bunch of skinny young men just like going ham. It's like just someone they can identify with in there.
She was also an organizer in some ways, right? Like
Yeah.
She had her. She did a lot. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of the credit has to be given to Alyssa for building this community. I mean, she pulled like Brenda and Steph.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Like they're like pillars of our community now. So
Yeah. And again, just having like times in the schedule, like Steph's first class was like a parkour fit class that was running at the same time as like one of her kids' classes. But we did strategically.
That's how I started.
She had told me that she was like just watching on the sidelines for a bit. And same with Brenda, just watching on the sidelines, and Alyssa pushing Brenda to come in. And then there's like a collection of other names, like people come and go. It is what it is. But I think we've always had like a pretty good turnout of women in classes. I think I've definitely taken pride on like looking at a class sometime and I see like maybe a group of 15 adults and I'm like, oh, there's actually 8 women and 7 men in this class. That's pretty awesome in the world of parkour. but I don't know if I could actually like give someone the playbook on like how that happened. I think some of the things I'm like, again, luck, the city of Vancouver, find a good role model.
Representation does go a long way.
But it's tough because
The talent
I
pool
think-
was so small to begin with.
yeah. We're looking at parkour. It's like it's the same with like just trying to find like good coaches in the community too. Because if you're only hiring parkour bubble, like people that are already passionate about parkour, they could be really limited in other skill sets. And so it's actually tough to find superstars in the parkour community. As a business owner, you have to make this decision: am I going to hire people with the skill sets to lead through, talk to people, have good customer service, be accountable, and then make them passionate about parkour? Or am I going to take someone who's passionate about parkour and teach someone other skills? Mind you, those other skills you may not have yourself. I know I didn't open up a gym. I think in a lot of ways, like just the success of Origins, like sometimes it was just pretty stubborn. So like in the times that it was bad, it was like, no, let this thing close.
Earthbender, yeah.
So I think like we survived maybe like the first few years because people were just vibing with what we thought was cool. But there was so much of it that I like wasn't considering as like that I'm so passionate about now. Like I'm really passionate about service, about like providing people a good service when they come in and making sure they get good customer service. It's like I'm gonna do a weird reference here, but like Chick-fil-A, and I know Chick-fil-A like has its whole thing, but like they put it in their culture of like they say like my pleasure.
Yep.
And I think it's like the founder one point. It's like you say that enough times, you actually start to believe it, right? And it's not like gaslighting yourself or anything. But I did really start to take pleasure in making my passion to actually give people a good experience. Whereas when I opened the gym, it was all about like here's what I want to teach, here's what I want to build. It's like the gym is for me, and I think just enough people vibe with that. But when we really took off and became better was when I really started changing my focus on like I want people to have a great experience here, and it has to be about them.
All right, here's my last question. Where do you think parkour competitions are going in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you think the future is? Or what would you want it to be?
You want me to take this?
5 to 10 years is a weird one. We've had a dream of time, like we'd love to do SPL in and arena. And so these are like goals. This is like okay. We know like for the next couple of years, like okay, it's still going to be at Origins most likely. There are some like mega facilities around the world that are much bigger and we can probably do more at. But we just have things so dialed at Origins right now, and you know I can control like, hey, we're going to close for a week and make this happen. Whereas a lot of gyms, like I think even with like USPK, you probably find when you're getting people to be the host gym, the host venue, it can be a big ask to close down for a number of days, close down for, and it's kind of up to the gym itself to make that worthwhile for them, right? To get their clientele, their community involved and engaged and excited about what's about to happen. And I think it's just that's kind of a tall order for the same things I was talking about. Like that's a whole other skill set.
Shout out to our host gyms. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we would like to take it out of Origins. I don't know what the timeline on that is going to be. Like it's one of those things where there's spots, but at the same time, there's a lot of other things we could allocate funds to that I think would come before moving into a different facility or doing an arena or something, because that would be like even bigger cost. So that's front of mind for me. Is like I think about location and where we can go. And yeah, who knows? A couple of years we could be doing it somewhere else.
I actually struggle kind of looking really deep into the future. So from my perspective, I'm like, how can we make the existing format better? And so we already have ideas of what we're trying to for this year in terms of format for SPL 4, which will be slightly changed going into World Championships, and then the immediate season after. So I'm literally looking at a 1-year timeline personally. So I don't care about 5 years in the future, because how do we keep this sustainable for 1 more year? It's kind of like, so
We would really like to continue to solidify as at the World Championships. That's like the true undisputed World Championships. And the way we do that is we collaborate with more countries, more communities. But the toughest thing is we can only qualify so many athletes in this thing. So we end up usually with around, the number kind of varies. It's usually around like 15, 16 athletes per category in the preliminary round of the SPL final for those championships. And then, of course, by day 3, it's top 5, right? And I think, can't remember how many years ago, I think it was SPL 1 where we had like 90 something athletes.
For the onsets?
No,
Or-
just qualifying.
Wow.
I think it
this-
was 100.
Yeah, it was great. It was too much. Like after that, we had
No, this is 2019. This is before SPL 1.
Okay, so the final event that we called NPC had like the most qualified athletes. Really cool that it was like really hype and everything, but it was a nightmare to manage. We certainly lost quite a few. We were definitely in the red quite a bit that year. So we've learned that it's a tough call. Like we'll have someone in 4th place at like a qualifier, or in 2nd place, and we'll take the top one. Like, how do we get through this? We talk a lot about invites, and that's a direction we might go into as well. I'm sure people have feelings about it. We have feelings about it, where we want it to be this merit-based system, which is not qualified, but we'd also like to get Lulu Ruel to come to the competition and compete in style or whatever she wants, because Instagram says she's the best, so we should probably do that. But it's tough, because I think the only way for us to get someone like her is just to pay for her flight, bring her out. And we won't know until we do it if people are going to be upset about it or not. So we won't know until we try. I guess like other things like outside of SPL, the Olympics. I don't really get motivated about being part of the Olympics. Doesn't really turn the crank for me.
Do you feel like we're ready for it, even with just the competition formats, shifting year over year?
Well, we talked about this earlier with format. It's like so much of what we want to do, we also consider like the entertainment side. We want it to be professional. People. I think people think about the Olympics as like a money-making opportunity. For some people, it is, and in some ways, it is. But it's in spirit like amateur sport. There's not when you win a gold medal, there's no prize money attached to it. The money comes from your country or whoever is like whatever brand deal sort of get from it. And I think we recently saw how bad it could go with breakdancing. I think there was a lot of pushback on climbing. Tom and Mel, you might be able to speak more about how it's been accepted since then. But I don't have a lot of excitement around it. It would be, nice if there was an Olympic bid and SPL was somehow considered as like consulting on it or being able to be the ones that like set it up. But it doesn't even really excite me. It would just be like, I guess we got to do it. It's gonna suck if we don't. I'm definitely just more excited about trying to get like more eyeball on what we're doing. We have known our biggest constraint for a while is media, and we failed to deliver in the last calendar year. And we're trying to figure out just how we can make that happen, because we know that if we can get more content out, more media, more eyeballs, more viewerships, that's going to bring the sponsors, that's going to bring the brands, and then ultimately what we're hoping for is like some kind of broadcast deal where the event can be platformed. paid for a lot of our dreams about what we want it to look like come true.
Okay, well, awesome, y'all. Thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure every year to get to do national championships with you, international. So cool. That's what we got. Thank you.
Thank you.